Hello, this is Arthur again, and today I have this 2008 BMW 550i M Sport. I worked on this car a few months ago. I did a full valve stem seal replacement as well as spark plugs, ignition coils and a few other things. I did do a video on it and I'll link it in the description box below. As far as today goes, this car has had few updates done to it ever since. I want to show you guys around, and I'm also going to do the brakes on it, so I'll go over the brake replacement as well. Okay, let's take a look. Unfortunately today the car is a little bit dusty, but you can see the headlights look like new now. They were refinished and they actually came out really good. The bumper, I believe, was touched up a little bit. The paint correction was performed. The one is clean, it looks really good. The wheels were actually refinished in the original color. They just have a lot of brake dust. That's how they look gray, but when it's clean they look great. Actually the reason is why replacing the brakes pretty much is because of this brake dust. I'm going to show you the brakes we're going with that don't produce any brake dust at all in a minute. Also, the owner had the shadow line trim installed. It's actually a tape, but it's like a wrap, but it looks really good. It's very gloss finished, looks actually great. Whoever installed it, they did a really good job. As well as over here, because the finish was fading over here slightly, so they installed this tape and it looks really good. He did install this small spoiler on the back window, as well as, if you saw in the original video, the taillights were very faded on this car, and it got new taillights as well. We did get new tires, small spacer in the back for a little bit more aggressive fitment, and on the inside we just got new floor mats, and I believe the steering wheel rewrapped. Overall, the car is in very nice condition. It does have 91,000 miles only, so it's not much. Okay, let me show you the parts I have. Okay, as far as the brakes go, we're gonna go with front rotors, pads front and rear, and new sensors. The rotors are gonna be the Hella Pagic, and the pads, these are my favorite pads to use on any car if they're available. Akebono Euro Ceramic. They literally produce no dust or make any noise, and the braking performance is pretty close to an OEM one, so you're not losing much in anything really, and they're priced really good as well. I highly recommend these pads on any car if they're available. Alright, let's get to it. Okay, to start, I'm going to remove the 6mm Allen screw that holds the rotor in place. Next, I'm going to remove this retaining clip. Next, I'm going to turn the wheel towards the passenger side to give me some access to these 18mm bolts that are behind the caliper. Before I remove these 18mm bolts, I want to remove these covers over here that hold the bolts for the caliper. These are 7mm Allen. You can move the caliper out a little bit to be able to remove that cover. Just spread it slightly with a big screwdriver. Okay, and this comes out. do have a jack stand to support this so it won't be hanging down. Next I'm going to remove the rotor Before I do that, I'm going to screw in one of the wheel lock bolts in place a few times, so that way when I smack this out of its place, it doesn't go out flying. These are usually pretty tight, so you do need like a pretty big hammer to get them loose. There you go. Before I can install a new rotor in here, I need to clean this surface up because there is some rust and stuff over the years of sitting on it. And for that, I'm using a metal brush with a drill. Before I install the new rotor, I gotta put a little bit of caliper grease all around, not too much, just a little bit to have a thin layer, so next time the rotor is not stuck onto the hub. Here I have the new rotor. As well as new retaining screw. Next, I'm going to clean up this bracket with a metal brush and brake cleaner. You kind of want to mainly clean this surface where the pad rides on. You don't want too much dirt here, so it doesn't get hung up on anything as it moves around. So here's on this side. Some brake cleaner. Okay, now this one is ready to go back on. Okay, next I need to press in the caliper. For that I'm using this tool. It's a caliper pressing tool. I can go in from here. There you go. Then I can add this plate on this end. You kind of want to do this with the brake pad on, the old brake pad, so that way this rotating piece doesn't throw off the rubber boot that is around the piston. You can technically turn this end and it will be fine as well, but this one takes a little bit longer to do, so I prefer to do it this way. Just saves you a little bit of time. Next, I'm going to remove the old pad. Here you can use a cleaner to clean up some of the big dirt. For the new pads, there's two sides, one with two ends, one with three. The one with three goes inside the caliper. The one with two goes on the outer side. Before I put them in, I apply some grease on these ends as well as on the back. You don't need to put crazy amount, just a little bit to make things work smoother. This one goes in from here. One. Now the other one, same thing, just has to go in from the other side. Go. Now I need to put in the new brake sensor. Brake sensor is secured to over here. You gotta pull this out, as well as there is a little box with a door that holds the connector in place. You can pull this out. Here's the connector. There's a little button over here you gotta press, and then this pulls out. So old sensor out. I got the new sensor. Just gotta make sure not to force it, and it goes in nicely. You push this back in. There's a prong over here. Same thing, route it back right here, and this one goes on the bleeder screw, and this one onto the brake pad, but you can do that after you install the caliper. Now to install the caliper, you gotta make sure these bolts are pressed out and are not interfering with anything here, and gently push this back on and put in your 7mm Allen screws back in. Important not to forget these covers. They go on those, this dust shield. Now the sensor nicely here. You gotta make sure you route this sensor correctly, or it might get cut up on the wheel and rip off, and then you get a brake light on. Now next, you have to put this retaining clip back in. Give it a wipe. There you go. You push this back, make sure it's seated. Okay, this side is done. Okay, now I'm on the back passenger side. This is the side that has the sensor. That's the one I'm going to show you guys how to replace. The sensor is routed over here to this box on top. I'll show you. There is an issue on this rear wheels. There's spacers that the owner installed, and unfortunately the hub-centric part has broken off on both sides. I think they're very thin, and while driving probably keep hitting it, and this has broken off. I'm gonna let him know and see what he wants to do about it. As of now, we're going to concentrate on the brake. I'm going to remove this clip. This clip is smaller than the front one, but has two legs instead of one. There you go. There are also covers behind these bolts as well, dust covers, and this one is also 7mm alum, just like the fronts. These are not very tight, they're about 16 pound-feet or so, the torque. I'm going to break it loose slightly with a screwdriver to be able to pull the caliper out easier. These rotors are not going to get replaced, as they're pretty much like new. There's no vibration or anything. And we're going to save up a little bit of money this time and not replace the rear rotors. Just going to do the pads. As you can see, there's a lot of pad material left. We're just doing it for basically purpose of dusting and for sake of having new pads. Some brushing going on over here. This side has the sensor. I'm going to pull this one out. Sensor goes over here. As well as like the front, there is a small retaining thing that holds the sensor down. Small button again. There you go. And pull the brake pad out at this point. This rear caliper, I don't have to put anything to hold against it. You can just lean on a control arm and it stays there very well. Next, I'm going to compress the caliper with the same tool. This one is easier. There's no crazy juggling to get it through. Just rotate it nicely. Watch for the rubber boot, make sure it's not getting pinched. It shouldn't. Okay, now I can clean it. Next, I'm going to install the pads. So two different pads again. The one with the spring goes onto the caliper piston and the other side is on the outer side. I'm going to put some grease on them. This one goes here and the other one goes on the other side. as such. Next I can add the caps for the dust covers or dust covers. Here I have the new sensor. There you go. There you go. Next is going to be this clip. So just pushes in. That's it. And I'm going to put the wheels back on. Now the other side is the same, it just doesn't have the sensor. Here all the old parts are removed from this car. The rotors are not terrible, they do have some grooving and a little bit of lip. The pads don't look too bad either. They are all OEM pads whenever they replaced before. I think this car was mainly serviced at BMW dealership, so you know they got OEM stuff. The rear pads are touching the sensor, so soon the light would have probably come on. Alright, brake pads and front rotors have been replaced. One thing you want to watch out for when you're doing brakes on any car is when you press the caliper back into place, the fluid level can rise and overfill and spill out from the reservoir. This car didn't really rise that much because the brake pads were still pretty thick, so it wasn't so much to push back, so the fluid didn't really go up that much, but that's something to keep in mind. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward job. It's on most cars it's the same. There's differences in the brake calipers. This one is a little bit awkward caliper in the front. Some of the F series BMWs have this kind of calipers, like the 5 series, 7 series, 6 series, and overall it's not bad. You know, if you have any car, you can follow these instructions or similar instructions and get it done. Alright, thank you for watching. Please comment, like and subscribe. There are more videos to come.